And I think that that leads into, once we have a solid practice plan, how do we move forward with actually like play development and play calling? And I know that is, some of you have just had your first game last weekend. And so I was watching coaches, have their finger on the turf and pointing at what directions they need to go. I've seen others come out with notebooks. I've seen others come out with iPads. That some have wristbands, and just there's so many different ways to come out here, and we're all just like, I just don't even know. This is a very challenging moment. And I think that this is going to be perfect for Coach Jeremy Zeiders to introduce this topic to you guys. And really, it's all about offensive foundations. And I think what we're going to learn here in this next segment is really the concepts to give your offense an advantage on every play. Coach Jeremy will show you some of the most effective plays that he's developed over his 20 years of youth flag football coaching through diagrams and game footage. More importantly, you'll learn the concepts that make these plays work so that you can teach them to your players and develop your own playbook. So I think you're absolutely going to love this section. Coach Jeremy, this is yours. Thanks so much.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you so much. I know that are we a little short on time here at the end? Do we need to have a hard stop at 5? Okay.
No,
or at 8 for you. Okay. Yeah. I'll probably talk for 10 to 12 minutes. And then if there's still some people that want to hang around to ask questions, just to let you know I've got a pretty tight topic, and I actually was hoping that we could keep talking to Nick, because he had some really good things. Like you said before, been doing this for 20 years, but constantly learning, mostly learning from mistakes, and just really appreciate the chance to chat. Can you see my screen here? You should see 5 blue icons there. Okay. I'm going to just try to get my mouse working here. Okay. So I'm Jeremy. I'm the guy in the back with the ill-advised playoff beard. This is my 10U team from last year. My players call me Coach JZ. I'll answer to either. I currently coach in a nonprofit league that I operate here in the Phoenix, Arizona area called Duo Football Club. And we've got kids aged 5 to 17. So the things I'm going to talk about here, I love what you said, Nick, about things being scalable. That's our whole philosophy. We start simple and then we build. I am one of the founders of the Playmaker apps. Some of you may use, I know Nick and Brian, I mentioned that they do. I have been coaching for 20 years. So I like what Brian said earlier about the veterans feeling like we don't know what we're doing. We learn new things all the time. And I love this idea of the coaching community being a very supportive one. Here I am in 2001 with one of my first teams demonstrating some terrible posture, but I will just point out that my cargo short discipline was on point for a guy that didn't have kids yet. And here I am with my most recent 17U team, still wearing pants with too many pockets, but they're functional, so we just shouldn't judge each other on that. Today, I'm going to share 5 foundational play design concepts. They're designed to give you an offensive advantage in every play. And I'm going to use my playbook, my base playbook that I give to all my new coaches to show the concepts in action, but you can apply these to any play style. The important thing is to have a solid why behind each play, and getting into that habit of explaining to your players why a play is how it is. It raises their development. They have a better enjoyment of the game. A lot of my players are why, and that's just a great way to head off a lot of those conversations. But they really start to understand the concept. Like Nick said, as you build these over the years and you have the same group of kids, they have this foundation that they understand that if I'm asked to run in a straight line, it's not for no reason. There's a good reason for that, and it's a part of our play design. The other thing I wanted to point out, this says part 1. At the end of the presentation, I'll have a link for you if you're interested in seeing more, where this may answer some of the questions you come up with. It dives into my base playbook. I go through every play in excruciating detail, my daughters tell me. But if you're into that kind of thing and my voice hasn't been too annoying to listen to for this 15 minutes and you want some more, I'll give you that link. Okay, so here's the 5 concepts. We're going to talk about the grid, influence, overload, package plays, and constraint plays. Some of you who have a football background might be familiar with these terms. I found it's helpful, though, to distill these concepts because plays aren't just lines on a page or on an iPad. Plays should be built around concepts. Let's talk about the grid. So a successful flag football play gets the ball to a player as efficiently as possible and as much space as possible. But every play starts with defenders occupying space. So we can't just throw or run the ball wherever we want and expect that to be successful. We need a framework to identify the spaces on the field that we want to attack. If we divide the field into 4 quadrants down the middle and sideline to sideline, we get this grid effect. Now, for my beginner and intermediate teams, I set this horizontal line at 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. If you have a more advanced team or a strong, accurate quarterback, you could move it back to 7. I know some people who use a similar grid concept who will go with a 9 square grid. I like this because it's simple and it suits the kind of kids that I'm coaching. So now this grid gives us a tactical board with a framework with these really clearly defined areas that we can attack. And the goal, simply stated, is to win the grid by clearing any quadrant of the effective defenders in that quadrant. One way to do that is with influence. So the idea is we want to clear all the effective defenders out of that quadrant by send the ball with a player or to a player into that open space. And we can influence the defense with our formation or with our flow, depending on what kind of defense we're facing. So influence, formation, and flow. So here's an example of formation influence. Just a quick note, I'm going to show still images here just because I wasn't sure about zoom lag, but if you want to see these full motion videos, that link at the end will have all of this in a format that you can scrub through yourself and have a closer look. Okay, so back to this. So formation influence. If you look at down here so that you can see, but because the defense is in cover 1 where they've got one of their players head up on each of our players, we've actually created a pre-snap alignment that's completely cleared half the field. So just by our formation before the play starts, we've got a huge advantage here. Quadrants 1 and 3 are totally clear. As long as we get a clean snap and handoff, Nick alluded to skill. We spend the majority of our practice working on skills, clean handoffs, clean fakes, making sure our snap is good, that we have a good starting position. If we get that clean snap and that clean handoff here, we're going to get really good yardage out of this play. And we do. So here we are at the snap. And this is just after the handoff. And if you look here, even after this player's had the ball for a couple of steps, we still have 5 defenders who are on the wrong half of the field. If we had Nick's Gates drill that taught cutback skills, we probably would have scored on this play. Got about 10 or 15 yards, didn't quite make it because we decided to cut back into defenders. So Nick, thank you. I'll be working on that with this group next season. So that was the influence through formation. Now, I'm not sure what it's like in the leagues that you're coaching in there, but in our leagues, if teams roll out in a man-to-man defense against us, we just keep using formation influence to create an advantage for ourselves. But often what happens is defenses will adapt and they'll switch into a zone to more effectively cover space and not to be out of position at the start. A lot of defenses we face just start in a zone. It's probably like that where you are too. So that makes it a lot harder to influence with formation. So that's where I use flow influence to win that grid. So flow influence, you'll notice that we've got a defense that's kind of in a 1-3-1 zone. They've got a near defender, a safety, and then 3 intermediate defenders here. We've got the same base play and formation that you saw before. And what we're going to do is we're going to, with a fake handoff, if you look at the before and after, it's a little hard to see in my terrible image quality down there in the lower left. So if you look at the diagram here, you're going to notice that with the fake, we actually end up clearing quadrants 2 and 4. So we get an effective fake, like Nick talked about. We get a really good fake handoff. It's fairly believable. We even get an assist from the coach. I don't know if you can see him here. He recognized the formation and personnel. So he's already telling his players that we're going to be handing the ball off. It's great. And here we are at the snap again. So what we're going to do, we got the 1-3-1 zone. Here is the snap. here is the mesh point, just before the mesh point. So I've got my little quarterback. She's got the ball extended so everyone can see it. I've got my running back's got a really quality handoff receiving position. And what's going to happen is he's going to clamp down and fake like he has the ball. And you can see, again, all the defenders are on the wrong half of the field. This is a super high percentage pass. We're in a no run zone, just barely in that no run zone. I didn't like to pass with this team a lot because of experience. And I don't remember who it was. Was it an old Michigan coach said, there's only 3 things that can happen when you pass the ball, and 2 of them are bad. I think it maybe is Bo Schembechler, and I believe that, especially with these younger players. So anyway, we get the whole defense on the wrong half of the field, and we've used the flow of our offense to get an easy first down and then some. I think we just about score here. So another way to win the grid is with overload. So, and this is probably really effective if you have a highly skilled team, especially a quarterback. More experienced players. But the idea is, instead of trying to clear defenders from a quadrant, we just want to send enough players to outnumber the defense. You probably know this as a flood concept. While I sometimes use these concepts with my more advanced teams, I prefer to win the grid with influence. The teams I coach tend to have minimal practice time, and our quarterbacks are usually less experienced. So we get more bang for our buck in our limited time with influence. But we've played against some really good teams like the one I'm showing you here. They attack quadrants 3 and 4 exclusively. They've got a strong, accurate quarterback and ample time to work on timing and concepts. This is also the kind of thing that you could start with, focusing on influence with your younger team. And as the years progress, start to open up to these additional concepts, because it can be very effective. I'll show you here how this team got us into a situation where we had a 3-on-1 scenario and we were completely outnumbered in that upper left quadrant. So here we are at the snap. Here's our opponent. Here's our defense. We have a rusher here, so she's going to be out of the play just after the snap. Okay, so here we are. We've got 1 defender. We've got 3 receivers. Our safety went the wrong direction, turned his back to the play. And so this is an easy win for them. And this pass ends up being a little bit underthrown, and he still scores. You can see our safety out of position. I did a really terrible job. Nick was talking about coaching mistakes. This was one where I just said, I'm really sorry. That was my mistake. I didn't prepare you for this type of overload scenario, and I didn't work with my safety enough on making that read. So good learning opportunity here. It's always great to coach against people a little bit better than you, or in this case, a lot better than you, because you learn from that. So that's the overload concept. All right, package plays. So package plays are plays that give us both run and pass options. If you followed college or pro football at all, you've heard the term RPO, run pass option. It's just a trendier name for package plays. I broaden this term in flag football to include any play that's identical in execution, but gives options for where the ball ends up. For example, a reverse that can also be a fake reverse, or this play, the circle play I showed you before. The idea is that this play, for the players, the formation's identical, all of the movement is identical. The only difference is whether we're going to run or pass. And in this scenario, with my younger team, the read progression, like Nick talked about, is from, we make the easy pass first. This is almost always the easy pass. So she's going to look here first. If that's covered, we're going to look to the middle. With older kids, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, this concept of a constraint play, you also have this over the top option. But a package play offers run and pass options. And these are the same 2 plays I showed you before. So hopefully there's some familiarity there. So here's the run version, which you've seen. Here's the pass version, which you've seen. Good fake, easy throw for easy yards. And here's another thing that's kind of great about package plays is that you can be very adaptable on offense. I just have 1 formation here. All the rules are the same for all the players. But now we've got 2 ways to attack the defense based on what they're showing us. We can attack them with formation if they line up in a one-on-one defense. We can attack them with flow if they're in zone. So it gives you a lot of adaptability if you're not teaching 18 different plays to your players. So they look the same to the defense at the start, but they're very different with where the ball ends up. In the run variation, we're going to attack quadrant 1. I'm pointing at my screen as if you can see where I'm pointing, I have to use the mouse. And then in the pass version, we're attacking quadrant 2. And I've actually, even with some of my younger teams, gotten in situations where I have a smart enough quarterback where I can give her a little cue about if we want to run, we can do a check with me at the line. And it's kids as young as 8. That's a little more advanced. But once they've run this play for half the season, what you'll find is that that's actually not that big an adjustment to make, since everyone's doing the same job no matter what. All right. Finally, this is probably my favorite concept. A constraint play breaks your offensive patterns to punish defenses that cheat. So for example, with my intermediate team, I still mostly call run plays and quick high percentage passes within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. We spread wide instead of deep. But what happens is defenders start to cheat. And so at the time of this clip that I'm showing you here, we had run a quick hitch pass out here to our outside receiver 3 or 4 times with success. And you'll notice right after the snap, this defender's body weight is completely committed to that short pass. So even before this point where the ball's in the air, he's flying forward. We've got the safety flying forward. So once we notice that, and he gets a nice flagpole behind the line of scrimmage. Once we notice that, we can punish them by breaking our pattern with a constraint play. In this case, we're going to use a hitch and go for that constraint. And the whole goal, it's not necessarily that we're going to hit a big scoring play here. It's just to remind that defender that they need to play honest so we can go back to doing what we want to do. So here's the example of the constraint play. You can see right after the snap, this defender weight totally forward. Our receiver's running past. She's already made the pump fake. You have to believe me that she's the quarterback's these 25 pixelated squares here. So the defender commits. She makes a great throw high and away from the safety who got caught flat-footed. The ball's still in flight, perfectly thrown to that open space, and that's 6. So for the rest of this game, that edge defender was forced to stay back. That happens one time, and they're not really excited about cheating again. So he was constrained from jumping that future hitch route, which meant we could go back to our preferred short passing game. All right, so just quick recap. The grid defines the space we want to attack. We win the grid by clearing a quadrant with influence or outnumbering the defense with overload. Okay. Package plays give us multiple options in a single play design. Constraint plays punish defenses that cheat so we can get back to the offensive patterns we prefer. So I just wanted to reiterate, I've shown you these examples using my run heavy short passing style offenses, but you can apply these to any style. I've had teams at times with the talent advantage to be less conservative, but I've always used these core concepts to design my plays and help them understand. I've really learned that this idea of explaining why and not just the what has a big impact on their development and enjoyment. Before we jump into Q&A, I mentioned a link. If you go to this page, there's a couple of resources there. There's a free playbook there that's built on these concepts. I think there's 16 plays, half of them, it's the same 8 plays, some under center and some from shotgun, because I know some of you are interested in those options. I give this playbook to any coach who joins the league that I operate gets this playbook as a starting point. Inevitably, what they do is they adapt it to their personnel and to what they find happening on the field, but it's a great place to start. If you use our app, there's a code, you can just import it. If you don't, you can just watch the video and write the plays down yourself in whatever format you prefer. And then there's also part 2 of the video that I mentioned that goes through every one of those 8 base plays and explains in painful detail what each position is responsible for and really gets into that why that you can communicate with your players. That's it for me. Did I do it? I was close. Maybe a little longer than practice, but.
Coach, that was incredibly insightful and enlightening. I think that, a lot of this, when you're able to break it down into simple terms and understanding the why is exactly right on. So I think just the first eye opener was just looking at the grid, right? I think that is something like when we're trying to talk to an offense, I don't know if we truly break down what the defensive end looks like or what the goal of each of the plays in the formations of why we exactly set these up. And so when you can go down and you can start basically increasing your football IQ to these little guys, in addition to yourself, this really changes everything. And as you went through and began the progression of, okay, like I felt like I was just in school right there. Right. And again, doing this for a long time and understanding like I do that. And that's why, but seeing it explained the way that you explained it really made a lot of light bulbs go off just in me. And again, I'm a veteran coach, you guys. I know a lot of you are brand new coming into this for the first time, but everything that Coach Jeremy just said is spot on. That is exactly the way that we progress with our play calling. And those are, if you can start understanding that, and I would go through and I would really watch this entire presentation like again, because all of it will start to make even a little bit more sense as you start getting into it. But it's funny because, you know, as Nick had said, like I have as well used your playbook for, I don't even know how many years. It's been forever since we originally came in contact, and it's been a lifesaver for me as it really being able to communicate to my team regarding a play is incredibly important. And, you know, I do a lot of, you know, I like the package play formations. I'm an overload type coach. But again, a lot of you guys, right, the concepts of what he said, right, run heavy, short passing game, like that is the key to this format of play. And if you can, it's always fun, of course. You let kids call it, we're going deep all the time, right? That's but if you could start explaining the game, right, everybody starts to understand. And as you start going through these over and over, it really makes a difference. Jeremy, that was awesome. I love that piece. Kathleen, do we have any questions that came through regarding maybe some play designer development?
We did have a couple questions come in. So this one comes from Coach Brian. In the Madden division, the rush comes in really, really fast, you know, and how do you help buy time to allow a quarterback to actually read the field and develop their football knowledge?
That's a great question. From my part, that circle play that I showed you is one of the ways that we negate the rush. Usually teams will stop rushing us because they realize it's a wasted effort. And so we design an offense that happens and hits so quickly that the rusher is never really an issue. I think we went 2 or 3 seasons without ever giving up a sack with the 10U and 8U teams. So that's one way to do it. It probably depends on which division you're in. You mentioned Madden. Can someone remind me what age group Madden is?
That would be the 4th grade and up. So it plays, you know, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and then a middle school division.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, what you can do is you could actually create some packages, even if you're like a team that likes to, we call it unleashing the dragon. If, you know, the kids want to go deep all the time, even if you're a team that likes overload and likes to throw deep, what you could do is create a little package of plays that if you're starting to get crushed by that rush, create some plays that are out of the same formations as your deep passing plays, but have them be quick hitters, because that's a way to sort of effectively, you could apply the constraint concept, run a series of plays that starts to get that defense to back off on the rush because they don't feel like it's worth it. And then you can go back to doing what you want to do. The other thing you can do is you can the play action, even in a no run zone, that has been our number one rush stopper, especially like in an extra point scenario where even if we have a quick hitting play, sometimes we're getting a little bit of pressure. We'll just put a fake handoff in. And 9 times out of 10, that rushing defender is sort of like, you know, flinching towards the run. And so don't be afraid to fake a handoff, even if it's a no run. In the moment, the players don't really notice that. Hopefully that's helpful.
Coach Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. We are looking to have, as you'll see here, a coach's corner again on I think this is next Wednesday. So we'll continue with the theme. If you guys feel that it's, you know, it works for you and you appreciate you're learning something, that's all we ask. And again, I promised you guys that I'd give support to you throughout the season. And there's no better way than to reach out to our incredible coaching staff that we have to be able to give back. So you guys, thank you so much for all of your time. And everyone did great. Good luck this weekend. And if you have any questions or anything that came up that we were unable to answer, feel free to shoot us an email and we'll make sure that we get the response out to you. So until next week, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. Thanks again for all your hard work and dedication and all you do. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.